Cool. So Trevor from Procure Sense, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I always enjoy our conversations and I really appreciate you doing this for me.
No problem, Sally. It's a pleasure to be on the video.
Awesome. So Trevor, please can you take us through a little bit around the original employment equity, how our country works, and just give me that amazing background that I know that you do so well.
Sure, no problem. I think before I start with the legislation, what I'll maybe share with you is let's look at the state of our economy right now. And I'll give you just a couple of stats because, I mean, we've had COVID, we're getting out of COVID right now. And I think that'll paint the picture of where we are right now. And then I'll take you back to the future as to where the legislation started and the objectives it was trying to achieve. A lot of people don't realize that right now, unfortunately, South Africa has the highest unemployment rate in the world.
Wow.
Pre-COVID numbers, we've had a 19% drop in semi-skilled and unemployed youth. So it's gotten even worse. What's linked to this indirectly is since COVID, half of the SMEs that were in our ecosystem have closed doors. So COVID's really had an impact on SMEs, which are one of the large job creators in any economy. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, but we, as South Africa, only 56% of the population actually have access to internet, right? So why am I mentioning all of these things is because, you know, we talk about 4IR and you hear discussions about new technology. The reality is that, you know, most of the population don't have access to internet.
Yeah.
When you look at it from an entrepreneurial point of view, there is a study that's done. It's called the GEDI study. It's the Global Entrepreneurship Development Index. South Africa ranks 57th out of 137 countries. So that is the state of our economy right now. And we obviously need to change things from an economic point of view. So let's go back to 1994.
Okay.
What happened in 1994? What is a big thing that happened in our country in 1994?
Oh, you mean our elections and moving out of apartheid?
Right.
Yeah.
So we won the right to vote as a people of the country, right? So it was our first democratic elections.
Yeah.
And that's what we won, the ability to vote. So we won political freedom. What was lacking was economic freedom.
Yeah.
So the powers that be eventually said, how do we get economic freedom? What does economic freedom even look like? And they went and did research and understood, and this is an oversimplified version of it. I'm not an economist, but for people to understand, they said, what does good look like? What does a good economy look like? And the answer was that there was a very specific shape. The shape of a good economy is the shape of a diamond, where at the top of the diamond, you have some rich and wealthy people. At the bottom of the diamond, you have some poor people. But at the middle, which is the fattest portion of the diamond, is you've got a very strong, thriving middle class. Now, that is what the shape of a good economy looks like. If that's the case, what do you think the shape of South Africa's economy looks like?
Well, yeah, like inverted to that.
Inverted, but it's almost like a triangle, right?
Yeah.
So we have rich people, we have wealthy people in our country. We've got a diminishing middle class.
Yeah.
So it's getting squeezed. And at the bottom, we have an over-bloated bottom of poor people. So if the shape of the economy is a good economy is a diamond, and our current economy is looking like a samosa or like a triangle, you know, what do we need to do? We need to move from the triangle to the diamond. And effectively, that means you need to take the people that are at the bottom and push them towards the middle and push more people towards the top for us to create the diamond. And so how do we do that, right? How do you actually do that? You need to understand, okay, what are the things that are inhibiting people from moving there? And there's really three things, right? The first is people need access to skills. They need to upskill themselves in order for them to become more valuable for the economy and add value by doing jobs or different pieces of work. The second thing that they need access to the actual economy, right? So they need access to the economy and, you know, like finance. So they need access to finance. And so you need to provide them with different financial solutions, the ability to transact, because the economy works in that way. And So those are like the three things. You need access to skills, access to the economy, and you need access to finance.
Yeah.
Now, that's looking at it completely objective. That's what's going to move people up. So when they understood this, what transpired out of that, post 1994 was the National Development Plan, and a subset of the National Development Plan is the BEE codes, so the broad-based Black economic codes. And at its core, that is the three things that it looks to solve. It looks to increase the access to skills of the general population of South Africa, increase the ability for them to access the economy, and increase the ability for them to access the finance and financial solutions. Now, the reality is that that is what the objective is. Unfortunately, when you look at the demographics of our country, over 95% of our population is people of color. And so the BE codes is used as a means to say, okay, we need, and the majority of them sit at the bottom of the triangle.
Sure.
So the codes is used to say, okay, how do we move those people up for us to create the diamond, for us to have a thriving economy? So if you take color out of it, the reality is the codes is actually looking to help us build a sustainable and thriving economy of South Africa.
Yeah. Wow, it really, at its core is such a great piece of legislation to, I think people really misunderstand the idea behind it and what it's, do you find that a lot?
Yeah, there's three sides to a coin. There's, the left side, the right side, and then sitting on top. And when you stand on the edge of the coin or of South Africa, that's when you really have the ability to understand what the codes is really about. Unfortunately, we have people with divided views. It's, this is only for Black people camp, and this is only for privileged Black people camp. And then, you get another group of people saying, no, this is not working for Black people at all. It's actually diminishing our opportunities. So you have these very polar opposite views around the BE codes, understandably. And it requires you to sort of stand on the edge to understand what is the real purpose of it and how does it benefit us in the long term from an economic point of view.
Yeah. And when we look at procurement, I know that's one of the things that you look at a lot. And when we look at procurement, and we specifically with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, what do you think businesses should start to pay attention to? Where do you see the opportunities there? And where do you see that potentially businesses are not diversifying in the way that they should to be able to support these aims of our country?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing that we would advise corporates or individuals looking in the spaces is to remove the silo mentality. So it's very difficult. We see it within the BE codes itself, right? So you have different people managing different elements of the codes. For us to deliver true value, or for corporates to get a real return on investment, you actually need to have an ecosystem mindset. So to understand how all of the parts move, and that's both internal and external. So I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is that if applied correctly, when you apply or look at diversity from a broader lens, there are many business opportunities. So I'll give you an example of it. Some of the top tier corporates in South Africa and in the world are actually, their view on diversity, and this is a broader view on diversity, they look at it from a business point of view, is they're actually setting up initiatives, departments, functions that are looking to disrupt their own business model. So they're saying, how do we diversify our business? And we want to diversify our business, and how we're going to go about doing that is we are aiming to disrupt our own business model. And what's transpired and happened out of that is there's a lot of, within their value chain or their extended supply chain, they've identified innovative new technologies, new businesses that they would never have considered, because they have this view of we need to diversify our business. And that means we also need to diversify our supplier base.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we want to disrupt ourselves. And that is when you add all of those things and you look at it from all of those lenses, you actually find opportunities where there's innovation, where you're reducing your cost base from your supply perspective. And that's actually effectively making your business more valuable. So it requires a different lens of saying, how do I look beyond what we currently know, and how do we identify value in our supply chain? And that requires you to have a diverse mindset first around your business. How do you think differently about your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it seems sort of quite overwhelming when you put it like that. I mean, what is a great place to start? I mean, obviously, other than, you know, they definitely should speak to you. I know that, but what is like a great way to start? And is it to start to look at all of your suppliers, or is it start to isolate the data points around that?
Yeah, that's how we generally start with our clients is alignment, right? So there has to be alignment on what it is that you're trying to achieve. And there's various methods that you can use for that. Once you've got alignment of where you want to go and what you're trying to achieve, what you need as a guiding principle or a guiding sort of light is data. So what tends to happen with corporates is they've got this vision, it's great, etc. But because of internal dynamics within the organization, external pressures, etc., you often tend to lose sight of your North Star. And then projects never succeed. How we help corporates with that is we have a very data biased view on how we get to the North Star. So we have we use big data analytics to help our corporates synthesize what is actually happening in their supply chain. Who are the suppliers that are there? What value do they bring? Are you overpaying, underpaying? Are there opportunities for innovation, etc.? And you can only do that by collating large sums of data and helping corporates to make sense of what's actually happening in the supply chain. So I'd say those are the two things is corporates need to identify a North Star, and they do that. But your sort of guiding principle around helping you get to your North Star is data. And that requires big data analytics, because that's where the insights and the opportunities for diversification sit. It sits within the data.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I mean, I think one of the other things that I find, just obviously from running a smaller business as well, is that, you know, I think that there are some policy reviews that we need to have a look at as well. I think it's really hard to diversify if especially in South Africa, where like the SME market can't necessarily work on like very long payment terms, or can't necessarily work on like, you know, a 60 or 90-day payment cycle. I mean, I think there's a large part of the market, and those people that are running the businesses that, as you say, are supposed to be moving to the middle of the diamond, that are being excluded from the market with big policy. You know, I see that from we talk about it from an employee experience perspective, and say, you know, when you're onboarding people, you've got to have a look at how does your policy support bringing in people that have different backgrounds and different work experiences and different economic setups into your business. If you haven't had a job for a long time, for example, you need to pay that person daily to start, then you need to pay them weekly, then you need to pay them monthly. But that takes some time so that they can actually get into, you know, being able to get themselves to work without incurring more debt. And that policy dictates that can't happen all the time. So I think that there is, as you say, a new mindset that needs to come in to say, how do we actually make that vision come true by changing some of our policies as well?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So like, you know, to add to what you're saying, is the North Star is your vision. What game do you want to play?
Yeah.
And then that's strategy, right? The next part of that is, okay, so if I want to play in this game, so you can choose, I want to be a rugby player or a soccer player, right? So organizations need to choose the game that they're playing in. And so if you choose soccer as an example, that's the area in which you want to play it. But what you then need to understand is, okay, how do you want to win, right? So how you want to win determines the rules in which you play. These are the policies and the processes, the procedures, etc. That's where that part fits in. A key part that people forget as well is, okay, so you know the game you want to play, you know the style you want to play in, which is the processes, the policies, etc. But then who's on your team? And that's where capabilities come in. And a lot of corporates don't fully understand what it takes to have a winning team or a winning function, or, you know, winning, you need to articulate that. We take them through that process as well.
Okay.
In helping understand what are the capabilities. So where are the capabilities of the organization right now? Because, you know, the reality is Barcelona as a soccer team play a very different type of football to, let's just say, Manchester United. It's the same game, but it's different styles, and you need different types of people for it. And that's where diversity comes into play. That is also where the employment equity and management control legislation comes into play. So you can get points for it, but you need to understand at a strategic level, what game am I playing and who are the right people I need to have on my team, and how do I build their capabilities so that they can match the culture, the vision, and where we want to go as an organization. And underpinning all of that is data is helping you see, are we on track? Are we not on track?
Yeah.
Are we identifying the right opportunities?
Where are the holes in the game?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That made a lot of sense for me, and even not being particularly good at soccer, and I even got that. Trevor, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, I think it's been very enlightening for me, and I know that a lot of people out there will find this really helpful as well. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure, Sally.